The air at 5 a.m. was sharp, not just cold. It was a time for deep sleep, but the vibration of the cell phone under her pillow pierced Emily's eardrums like a scream. As soon as she opened her eyes, she felt a familiar, instinctual dread in the pit of her stomach. A phone call at this hour had never once brought good news. The name on the screen was Mark, her brother-in-law. "Emily, your mom." She suddenly collapsed. "We've called 911 and are on our way to the ER. I think you need to get over here, fast." Mark's voice was trembling, and through the phone, the wail of an ambulance siren made Emily's mind go blank. "Mom? What's wrong with her? What happened?" Emily asked, her own voice shaking. Mark explained that her mother's breathing had become ragged before she suddenly lost consciousness. He ended the call with a hurried plea for her to come quickly. Emily threw off the covers and scrambled to get dressed. The commotion woke her husband, David, who sat up, rubbing his eyes. "What's all the racket at this hour? Where are you going?" To David's irritated question, Emily answered without even looking at him. "My mom's been rushed to the emergency room. I have to go right now." David glanced at the clock and then let out a scoff of disbelief. "It's Thanksgiving. We're supposed to go to my parents' house today." Pulling on her coat, Emily replied coldly, "Someone could be dying. Is a holiday more important than that? What am I supposed to do if you talk like that?" The words that came out of David's mouth were not of concern, but of complaint. Feeling it was pointless to argue, Emily grabbed her purse and headed for the door. She quickly typed a message into her in-laws' family group chat. "Carol, I'm so sorry. My mother has been rushed to the hospital and is in critical condition. I don't think I'll be able to make it today. I'm truly sorry." Her finger trembled slightly as she hit send, but Emily left the house without a second glance. As she raced through the empty pre-dawn streets, her eyes welled up with tears. While waiting at a red light, she checked the group chat, hoping for a reply, but the screen only showed the stark read notification under her message. Her mother-in-law, her sister-in-law, and even her husband, David, not a single one had offered a word of comfort or even a simple acknowledgement. The silence felt like ice being driven into her heart. When she arrived at the hospital, Mark was pacing in the hallway and met her. "She's inside. They're running tests now." "How is she?" The doctor said it's a severe case of pneumonia that's gotten much worse. Given her age and underlying conditions, they said she needs to be admitted. On trembling legs, Emily pushed through the curtain of the ER bay. Hooked up to various machines, her mother looked so small and frail. Her breath labored behind an oxygen mask. "Mom." As Emily took her mother's gnarled hand, her mother's eyes fluttered open. "Emily, I'm so sorry." "What are you saying, Mom? It's Thanksgiving. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I'm fine." "So you should go. Go to your in-laws." Seeing her mother, even in this state, worried that her daughter would be mistreated by her husband's family, Emily gritted her teeth. "I'm not going. I'm staying right here. Your mother-in-law will be angry." "I don't care if she is. You come first, Mom." An hour later, the admission process was complete. Emily signed the guardian consent forms at the admissions desk. The pen shook in her hand. As she wrote her own name next to her mother's, tears welled up again. A nurse at the counter asked with concern, "Ma'am, are you all right?" "Yes, I'm fine." Emily forced a smile and finished the signature. Around 9 a.m., the quiet of the hospital floor was broken by the loud ringing of Emily's phone. It was her sister-in-law, Jessica. "Emily, are you seriously not coming today?" "No. My mom's condition is bad. She's been admitted. But it's Thanksgiving. It's not like your mom passed away or anything. Is it really bad enough to skip out?" Jessica's voice was thick with annoyance. "Not bad enough? She's been hospitalized. How much worse does it have to get for me to be excused?" "That's not what I mean. Mom already did all the food prep. If you don't come, who's going to cook and set the table?" "Then you can do it, Jessica." "Me? I'm a guest." Emily let out a hollow laugh. "A guest? You're a daughter. How are you a guest? But you're the daughter-in-law. And because I'm the daughter-in-law, I'm supposed to abandon my potentially dying mother to go celebrate a holiday?" Emily's voice turned to ice. Jessica, lost for words, abruptly hung up. At 1 p.m., Emily was sitting by her mother's bedside. Mark handed her a coffee. "Emily, did you hear from your in-laws?" "No. They've read my messages. But no one's replied." "Then forget about them. Don't worry about it." "But, Mark," Emily took out her phone and showed him the family group chat. It was a message her mother-in-law had sent to relatives that morning. As Mark read the screen, his face hardened. She told the relatives you wouldn't be coming ahead of time. Yes. Before I even sent my message saying I was at the ER. Emily smiled bitterly. From the very beginning, I never had a choice. She had already decided I wasn't coming. No matter what. Mark let out a long sigh. So you never needed to worry in the first place. That's right. There was nothing to worry about. Emily squeezed her mother's hand again. Now, all that's left is my choice. Outside the hospital window, the Thanksgiving morning sun shone brightly, but Emily's expression was colder than ever. Her phone screen still showed nothing but that single, silent, read notification. At 2 p.m., the air in the hospital waiting room was heavy and stagnant. Emily's head was pounding from lack of sleep and anxiety. But what truly tormented her was the incessant vibration of her phone. The first call was, as expected, from her mother-in-law, Carol. Emily, where are you right now? Carol's voice was as calm as usual, but it held a strange, underlying pressure. Emily swallowed hard. I'm at the hospital, Mom. In the waiting room next to my mother's room. As if she'd been waiting for that. Carol got straight to the point. I see. So, when do you think you can get here? Emily paused, speechless. Her mother had just been on an oxygen mask, fighting for her life, and she was asking when she would arrive. Emily steadied her trembling voice. I don't think I can make it today. I need to stay here until her condition stabilizes. Is it that bad? What did the doctor say? The pneumonia is severe. They said she'll need to be hospitalized for at least a week. Even with this explanation, Carol was unmoved. Instead, she let out an irritated sigh and made an outrageous suggestion. Well, couldn't you just stop by for a little while this evening? All the relatives are here. What will it make me look like if my daughter-in-law doesn't even show her face? Emily took a deep breath. Something hot was surging up from her chest. I'm sorry. I really can't make it today. Carol hung up without another word. Emily was about to put down her phone, feeling utterly dejected, when it buzzed again as if on cue. This time, it was Jessica. Did you just hang up on my mom? No, we were done talking. Jessica's voice was already on edge. Well, Mom is furious now. She says you made her lose face in front of all the relatives. The aunts are all whispering and complaining that they'll have to cook if you don't show up. It's a total mess. What did I do wrong? My mother is critically ill. How can I possibly go? But it's Thanksgiving. How could you not come? Have some decency. Who's going to cook all the food? You expect me and Mom to do everything. Jessica's voice escalated into a sharp scream. Emily responded icily. You cook it. You're her daughter, aren't you? What? You are so selfish. Is your mom the only mom in the world? I guess you don't give a damn about ours. The phone was slammed down again. Unable to bear it any longer, Emily switched her phone to silent mode. But the screen continued to flash, vibrating with incoming calls. From 3 p.m. onwards, the frequency of calls increased dramatically. Her mother-in-law, her sister-in-law, and her husband David took turns pressuring her. When she finally answered her husband's call, his voice was filled with agitation. Emily, the house is in an uproar. You have to do something. What am I supposed to do? Mom won't stop yelling. You need to at least answer her calls properly and apologize. Just say you're sorry and you'll come over tonight. Emily was so dumbfounded that a cold laugh escaped her. Apologize? What did I do wrong? Not coming to your in-laws on Thanksgiving is what's wrong. Because of you, I'm the one caught in the middle, and my life is hell, David yelled, raising his voice for the first time. Emily, feeling not even a shred of pity for her husband, spoke firmly. Then you come here. Spend Thanksgiving in the hospital, taking care of your mother-in-law. Don't be ridiculous. Why would I go there? So my words are ridiculous, but everything you say is perfectly reasonable? When Emily hit the nail on the head, David, with nothing left to say, hung up. By 4 p.m., the missed calls had exceeded 20. Emily, no longer wanting to hear their voices, placed her phone face down. But around 5 p.m., a voice message from her mother-in-law appeared in the family group chat. Hoping for something, anything, Emily put in her earbuds and pressed play. Emily, this is your mother-in-law. If the daughter-in-law abandons the house on a holiday, what do you think that does to the family? Do you know what the relatives are saying about you? They're openly disrespecting me, asking how I raised my daughter-in-law. I was so embarrassed I could have died. Is your mother that much more important? A married woman's priority is her husband's family. I'm beginning to doubt whether you are qualified to be a daughter-in-law at all. As soon as the message ended, a text from Jessica flew in like a poisoned arrow. Mom's blood pressure shot up because of you, and she had to take her medication. This is all your fault. What if something serious happens? Are you going to take responsibility? Emily stared blankly at the phone screen. Her hands were trembling, and her vision blurred. Just then, Mark entered the waiting room and, seeing Emily's face, rushed over in alarm. Emily, what's wrong with your face? Did something happen? No, I'm fine. Don't lie. You look completely drained. Mark pointed to the phone in Emily's hand. The call log was an endless scroll. Are your in-laws still calling? Yes, since this morning. Are they calling to ask how your mother is doing? Emily shook her head weakly. No, it's all about when I'm coming over. Who's going to cook the Thanksgiving dinner? Whether I'm qualified to be a daughter-in-law. That's all they talk about. Mark's face instantly hardened. What? You're telling me there hasn't been a single word of concern for your mother? Not one. Not a single call. Emily's voice was choked with emotion. Mark clenched his fists, suppressing his rage. At 6 p.m., a nurse quietly approached. Ma'am, the patient needs to rest, so please keep it down. The vibration from your phone has been quite loud. I'm so sorry. I put it on silent. But the vibration is also disturbing the other patients. If possible, could you please turn it off completely? At the nurse's firm request, Emily lowered her head and switched off her phone. Mark patted her shoulder. Good. Just leave it off. Those people aren't worth dealing with. Am I really doing the wrong thing? What's wrong with it? Your mother is lying in a hospital bed. It's only natural for her daughter to be by her side. But it's Thanksgiving. So, what if it's Thanksgiving? Is roasting a turkey more important than a person's life? That family of yours is completely insane. At Mark's outburst, Emily bit her lip hard. Around 7 p.m., Emily faced herself in the bathroom mirror. Her bloodshot eyes and parched lips were a pathetic sight. As she splashed cold water on her face, she made a decision. After drying her face with a towel, she turned her phone back on. 99 missed calls were displayed on the screen. The mother-in-law, the sister-in-law, and her husband, the three of them had relentlessly called her in turns. But among those countless notifications, there was not a single message or call asking about her mother's well-being. Emily shoved the phone deep into her purse and muttered coldly, Now, I see it clearly. I never had a family. From the beginning, I wasn't a member of their family. I was just a disposable appliance. With a more resolute expression than ever before, Emily walked back towards her mother's room. In her mind, the existence of her in-laws was being permanently erased. At 8 p.m., a call came from an unfamiliar number. Emily hesitated for a moment before answering. Hello? Emily? It's me, your Aunt Susan. David's aunt. Emily recognized the voice immediately. It was the aunt who, every Thanksgiving, would praise Emily's cooking and ask for a second helping. Oh, Aunt Susan, hello. Hello. What do you mean, hello? I heard you abandoned your in-laws on Thanksgiving. Is that true? Emily felt the air leave her lungs. The word abandon made her whole body freeze. I didn't abandon them. My mother is in the hospital, in critical condition. Critical? What I heard was she just had a bit of a bad cold. You'd ruin Thanksgiving for something like that? It wasn't a cold. She was admitted for pneumonia. She's on an oxygen machine right now. Emily explained each point clearly, but the aunt just scoffed. Still, shouldn't paying respects to your husband's elders come first? You can visit your own mother later. Later? My mother's life is in danger right now, and you're telling me to go later? Such back talk. Young wives these days are all the same. So disrespectful. The line went dead. Emily stared blankly at her phone. 10 minutes later, another call came from a different number. This time, it was a cousin from her husband's side of the family. Emily, this is your cousin, Linda. I heard a rumor that you've run away from home. What's that all about? Run away? I'm at the hospital, taking care of my mother. Well, Carol told everyone that her daughter-in-law ditched the family on Thanksgiving to go to her mom's, and now she's refusing to come back. She even said you threatened to leave for good. Emily couldn't believe her ears. Words she had never spoken were already spreading as rumors. I never said that. I'm just here at the hospital with my mother. So, is Carol lying? Or are you? The cousin's voice was sharp and accusatory. I don't know what my mother-in-law told you, but I never said I was running away. Fine. Then get yourself over to her house right now and clear this up. The whole family is in an uproar. The phone disconnected again. Emily gripped her phone tightly. Sweat beaded in her palm. She tried calling her husband. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. On the 5th try, a short text message came back. Mom is really angry. Can't talk right now. Emily read the text over and over. Not a single word of concern for her. She walked slowly down the hospital corridor. The hallway, bathed in the white light of the fluorescent lamps, was empty. Mark was sitting on a bench outside the room, drinking a coffee. Seeing Emily, he offered her the seat next to him. Sit down, Emily. You look pale. I've officially become the runaway wife. What? My mother-in-law must have told all the relatives I threatened to leave home. I just got calls, and everyone seems to believe it. Mark slammed his coffee cup down on the small table. That's ridiculous. When did you ever say that? I didn't. I never said it. But the rumor is already out there. Your mother-in-law deliberately spread that. Maliciously. Why would she do that? Why is she doing this to me? Emily's voice trembled. Mark sighed deeply. Emily, that's just how some in-laws are. It's easier for them if they can pin all the blame on the daughter-in-law. So, what do I do now? How do I undo a rumor that's already spread? You don't have to. You did nothing wrong, so there's nothing to undo. At Mark's words, Emily lowered her head. At 9 p.m., Emily stood by the hospital window, looking out. The city was quiet on Thanksgiving night. Another text message arrived on her phone. It was from Jessica. Mom was completely humiliated in front of the relatives. Our family is a disgrace because of you. How are you going to take responsibility for this? Emily read the message and started to type a reply, then deleted it. It felt like no matter what she said, it would be useless. At 10 p.m., Mark brought Emily a bowl of warm porridge. Eat this. You haven't eaten anything since morning. I don't have an appetite. You still have to eat. If you collapse, who's going to look after your mom? Emily forced herself to pick up the spoon. She put a spoonful of porridge in her mouth, but it wouldn't go down. Did I do something wrong? There you go again. What did you do wrong? Was it wrong not to go to my in-laws on Thanksgiving? So, you should have just left your mom to die and gone? Is that what you should have done? Mark's voice grew louder. Emily shook her head. No, I couldn't do that. Then, that's that. You did nothing wrong. Emily managed to finish the bowl of porridge. At 11 p.m., Emily lay down on the small cot in the hospital room. Her mother was in a deep sleep. Staring blankly at the ceiling, she replayed the day in her mind. 99 phone calls. Not a single one expressing concern for her mother. The rumor about her running away, words she had never even uttered. Emily closed her eyes. Tears flowed silently down her cheeks. I get it now. To them, I wasn't a person. I was just holiday help. Emily whispered to herself in the quiet hospital room. Well, after 11 p.m., the noise in the hospital finally subsided. Mark, who had been keeping watch with her, looked at Emily's exhausted face and stood up, grabbing his car keys with a sympathetic expression. Emily, you should go home tonight to wash up and get at least a little sleep. I'll take over, and we can switch back early tomorrow morning. But it'll be too hard for you to look after Mom by yourself. Mark. I'm fine. What do you mean? You're fine? I can catch some sleep here. Don't worry, just go and at least change your clothes. At Mark's insistence, Emily reluctantly nodded. Her body felt as heavy as waterlogged cotton, but strangely, the steps toward home felt like they were chained to lead weights. Arriving at the apartment complex parking lot just after midnight, Emily let out a deep sigh and got on the elevator. When she reached the 10th floor and stepped into the hallway, she froze in place, unable to believe her eyes. Next to her front door, dozens of black trash bags were piled up like garbage. What is all this? No, it can't be. A dreadful premonition creeping over her. Emily knelt down and opened one of the bags. Inside, her favorite winter coat, sweaters, and jeans were crumpled and shoved in haphazardly. She opened another bag. Underwear, her makeup pouch, her hospital employee ID, and even her bank book and personal seal with her name on them spilled out. Her hands started to tremble violently, and her heart began to pound. Just then, the door to the next apartment opened slightly, and her neighbor peeked her head out. Oh, Emily, you're getting home late tonight. Ah, yes. Hello, ma'am. Your mother-in-law and husband made quite a scene earlier this afternoon, putting all this stuff out. Is something wrong? The neighbor's eyes were a mixture of curiosity and pity. Emily's face flushed with shame, but she forced a smile. Oh, no, we're just clearing out some things we don't use anymore. Why would you leave it out in the hallway like garbage? People will think you've been kicked out or something. You should clean it up quickly. It's an eyesore." The neighbor clicked her tongue and closed her door. Emily sank to the floor, staring at the bags with empty eyes. Right at that moment, as if it had been waiting, a call came from her mother-in-law. "Are you there yet?" "I'm here. I'm in front of our apartment." "What is all this stuff in the hallway?" "What do you think it is?" "It's your stuff. I put it out for you. If you love your precious family so much, then go live with them. You have no place here anymore." Carol's voice was as cold as ice. Emily, utterly flabbergasted, raised her voice. "I didn't do anything wrong. How does staying at the hospital with my sick mother warrant having my belongings thrown out?" "You did nothing wrong? Ditching your in-laws on Thanksgiving and not even showing your face, if that's not a cardinal sin, what is?" "Do you know what the relatives said? They whispered about how I must have raised you, for you to look down on your mother-in-law so easily. I was so ashamed, I wanted to bite my tongue off. My mother is on an oxygen machine, fighting for her life. And in that situation, I was supposed to be there, cooking turkey and setting the table? Is your reputation more important than a human life?" "Carol?" "Right. Your mother is precious, but your husband's family's traditions are a joke to you? Fine. Then you can go live with your precious mother in the hospital forever. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Get your things and get lost." Carol shrieked and hung up. With trembling hands, Emily entered the code on the electronic keypad. But what she heard was not the cheerful chime of the door unlocking, but a sharp warning tone indicating the password was incorrect. With each beep that echoed down the hallway, Emily's heart felt like it was shattering. Clinging to a final shred of hope, Emily called her husband, David. After 6 rings, he finally answered, his voice thick with irritation. "What is it? Don't you sleep? You changed the passcode, didn't you? You locked me out. Mom told me to." When an elder is that angry, you should have had the sense to at least beg for forgiveness. "What is wrong with you? Are you in your right mind? Your wife has been kicked out of her own home, and you're talking like it has nothing to do with you. You weren't kicked out. You brought this on yourself. Wasn't this predictable the moment you abandoned your family on Thanksgiving? I'm tired. You figure it out." David hung up, cutting off Emily's scream-like questions. Emily leaned her back against the cold front door and slowly slid to the floor. She had dedicated 23 years to building this home, only to be treated like trash and thrown out for being absent for a single day. Checking the bags again, she found even her wedding ring in a small envelope. "They really threw me away. They're not even human." Emily let out a hollow laugh and wiped away the tears streaming down her face. At 1 a.m., Emily dragged the heavy trash bags, one by one, into the elevator. As she went down to the parking garage and loaded them into her car's trunk, she couldn't tell if this was reality or a nightmare. She called Mark from her car, and he was utterly horrified. "Mark, I've been kicked out of my house. The password's been changed, and all my stuff was thrown into the hallway." "What? Are those people insane? That's not something human beings do. Where do I go now?" "I have nowhere to go. For now, find a nearby motel or something. As soon as it's light out, I'll go over there and settle this." At 2 a.m., Emily checked into a rundown motel. The room, illuminated by a single fluorescent light, felt desolate and shabby. As she sat on the bed and began to unfold her crumpled clothes, memories of her years of devotion to her in-laws seemed to be embedded in each garment, and her heart ached. So this is how 23 years ends. In a black trash bag, Emily buried her face in her belongings and sobbed. On her phone screen, the last text message from her husband glowed coldly. "You figure it out." She wanted to hurl the phone against the wall, but the realization that this phone was now all she had left made her feel even more pathetic. Burying her face in a pillow, she cried silently, repeating a vow to herself thousands of times. "I will never, ever go back to you." At 3 a.m., Emily's eyes shot open on the unfamiliar motel bed. The world outside was silent, but a storm was raging in her heart, making sleep impossible. She stared blankly at a stain on the ceiling, then picked up the phone she had tossed aside. There was a text from Mark. "Emily, your mom's condition has stabilized. She's past the critical stage, so don't worry too much. You can come to the hospital this afternoon." The moment she read the text, the taut string of anxiety inside her snapped, and a sigh of relief escaped her lips. But the relief was fleeting, quickly replaced by the cold reality that now choked her. Where do I go now? Her home was now an impenetrable fortress. Her mother-in-law had changed the password and thrown out 23 years of her life in black trash bags like garbage. Her mother's house was empty as she was still hospitalized, and hospital policy only allowed one guardian to stay overnight. A roll mark was filling. I really have nowhere to go. I'm alone, Emily whispered to herself and opened the window. A biting wind slapped her cheeks, but it didn't hurt as much as the wound in her heart. At 4 a.m., Emily fled the motel. The thought of waiting until checkout time in that small, miserable room was unbearable. She drove aimlessly through the city streets before stopping in front of a 2-4-hour diner. But she couldn't bring herself to go inside. The image of herself sitting alone in a booth, a lonely figure in the harsh diner light, made her chest tighten. Ultimately, Emily ended up at a convenience store, tucked away on a side street. The fluorescent lights were as bright as day, and even at this early hour, the place was bustling with people. As she stood in the noodle aisle, reaching for a cup of instant noodles, her hand trembled. What am I doing here? For the past 23 years, Emily had woken up at 7 a.m. every single morning without fail to make breakfast. She would cook soup for her mother-in-law and husband, and carefully prepare side dishes to suit their picky tastes. And now, at 4 a.m., she was about to have a cup of noodles for a meal in a cold convenience store. Emily grabbed 2 cups of noodles and a pre-made sandwich. As she headed to the counter, her phone rang. It was her husband. Emily stared blankly at the screen, her hand hovering over the answer button. As the 5th ring was about to end, she let it go to voicemail. But just as she finished paying and stepped outside, it rang again. This time, she steeled herself and answered. Why aren't you answering your phone? You had me worried. Why are you calling at this hour? And you have the nerve to say you were worried? I figured you'd be awake. Where are you right now? Why? If I tell you, are you going to let me back in the house? Emily's voice was colder than ice. Her husband, David, was silent for a moment before starting his cowardly excuses. I can't do that right now. Mom is absolutely livid. How can I give you the new password? Just stay somewhere until she calms down. Until she calms down? When will that be? Are you telling me to be homeless out in this freezing weather for days? Well, it's true that you were in the wrong. Skipping out on your in-laws on Thanksgiving is no small thing. The elders wouldn't be acting this way for no reason. At those words, Emily burst out into a hollow, crazed laugh. Tears welled in her eyes, but she laughed out loud. You're really going to stick to that story until the very end, aren't you? When your mother-in-law was dying, was cooking a damn turkey really that important to you? Hey, why do you have to talk like that? When did I say the turkey was more important? I'm talking about family tradition and respect. I have nothing more to say to you. I'm hanging up. Emily, I'm not done talking. If you hang up now, this is really the end. Her husband's shouts echoed from the phone, but Emily pressed the end call button without a shred of hesitation. Then, she sat down on a bench outside the convenience store and poured hot water into her cup of noodles. During the 3 minutes she waited for the noodles to cook, Emily opened her banking app as if in a trance. She began to scroll through her transaction history for the past 3 years. Records of a $500 monthly transfer to her in-laws for living expenses. Payments for her mother-in-law's birthday gifts. Costs for holiday meals. Even allowance money for her sister-in-law's children. All of it had come from Emily's salary account. Emily opened a notes app and started punching in numbers. The result was shocking. Total, those 0. $32,000. My hard-earned money, $32,000. Emily muttered, her hands trembling. Her husband, David, worked as an independent cab driver, but his income was erratic. When he was in a bad mood, he would often take a week off from work. In the end, all of the in-laws' major expenses and retirement funds had come out of Emily's pocket. I used my own money to feed and clothe my in-laws, and what I got in return was a trash bag. The misery was a sharp pain in her chest, but Emily forced herself to swallow the noodles. Just then, a text message arrived from her sister-in-law. Jessica, Mom just got back from the ER because of her blood pressure. I hope you know that you ruined Thanksgiving and ran away, turning our whole family upside down. If you have any conscience, you'll come back right now and beg for forgiveness on your knees. Emily read the text and quietly deleted it. She finally realized that she wasn't the one who needed to apologize or beg. They were. At 5 a.m., Emily returned to her car and reclined the passenger seat. She turned on the heater, but the cold air lingered, a chill that seemed to seep into her bones. Why did I live so foolishly? I dedicated my entire life to earning their approval. Emily closed her eyes and made a vow. She opened the Notes app on her phone and added another line. In-law living expenses and unjust expenditures. $32,000. To be recovered in full, with interest, down to the last penny. Emily closed her eyes in the cold car. Though her body was shivering, her heart felt more solid and determined than ever before. All that remained for her now was a meticulous calculation and a certain, definitive revenge. The pre-dawn air was still cold, but in Emily's heart, where she had sworn revenge, a hot flame was beginning to burn. At 9 a.m., Emily was sitting in the hospital waiting room. Her mother had been in a deep sleep since the early morning, and Mark had gone home for a bit. Emily took a small notebook and a pen from her bag, a habit she'd kept from her job in hospital administration. The hand holding the pen trembled slightly, but Emily didn't stop. She opened the notebook. At the top of the page, she wrote, "Settlement." She opened her phone and logged into her banking app, downloading her entire transaction history for the past 3 years. An Excel file opened, filled with dense columns of numbers. Emily began to organize them by date. In-law living expenses, $500 a month. For 36 months, that's $18,000, she muttered, writing it down in her notebook. Holiday expenses, Thanksgiving and Christmas, $2,000 each. 3 years, that's 6 times, so $12,000. The pen moved swiftly across the paper. Family event costs, anniversaries, birthdays, roughly $100 each time, 4 times a year. For 3 years, that's $1,200. Emily tapped on her calculator. The total came out. It was higher than she'd calculated last night. She had forgotten her mother-in-law's medical copays. In her notebook, Emily wrote in large, red ink, $36,000. Evidence available. She turned to the next page and started organizing her call logs. 99 calls in a single day. She took a screenshot of every single one. Mother-in-law, 32 calls. Sister-in-law, 47 calls. Husband, 20 calls. Not a single call to ask about mom's condition. Emily wrote it down meticulously. Then she opened the audio file of her mother-in-law's voice message. "I'm beginning to doubt whether you are qualified to be a daughter-in-law at all." Emily replayed that part. She listened 2-3 times, transcribing it exactly. "Potential for defamation claim," she noted. Her hand moved without hesitation. She pushed her emotions aside and recorded only the facts. At 10 a.m., Emily went to the county's public records website. She printed out the deed to their house. The owner was listed as David Miller, her husband. But when she checked the mortgage payment history, she saw that the monthly payments had been automatically withdrawn from her bank account. Mortgage payments, 3 years' worth, $15,000. Emily tapped her calculator again. Adding this, the total came to $51,000. $51,000. Emily laughed hollowly as she wrote the number in her notebook. "I was a complete doormat." The house was in her husband's name, but she was the one paying for it. The in-laws' living expenses, the holiday costs, all of it was paid for by Emily. And now, she had been kicked out of that very house. Emily closed the notebook. The accounting was done. All that was left was to act. She opened her phone and went to the in-laws' family group chat. The last message was from Jessica. "Aren't you being irresponsible? Mom is having such a hard time." Emily placed her finger on the message input field. There was a mountain of things she wanted to say, but she typed nothing. Instead, she pressed the settings button in the top right corner. The Leave Chat button appeared. Emily pressed it without hesitation. A confirmation window popped up. "Are you sure you want to leave?" Emily pressed Confirm. The screen changed. The group chat was gone. Emily put down her phone and took a deep breath. "It's starting now," she whispered. An hour later, Mark returned to the hospital with sandwiches and coffee. "Emily, have you eaten?" "Not yet." "Here, eat this. It's your favorite, turkey and Swiss." As he handed her the sandwich, Emily accepted it gratefully. "I've made a decision." "About what?" "I'm going to file for divorce." Mark paused mid-sip of his coffee and looked at Emily directly. "Are you serious?" "Yes. I can't take it anymore." "Think it through carefully. It's been 23 years. Enduring it for 23 years was my mistake. I should have left sooner." Emily's voice was firm. Mark looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. If you've made your decision, that's what matters. I'll help you." "Thank you." Emily took a bite of the sandwich. Strangely, she could taste it today. At 2 p.m., Emily's phone rang. It was her husband. She didn't answer. It kept ringing, but she ignored it. A text came through. Why did you leave the group chat? Mom is furious. Get back in there right now. Emily read the text and sent a reply. I have no reason to be in that chat anymore. A call from her husband came immediately. Again, Emily didn't answer. Then a call from her mother-in-law. And then from her sister-in-law. Emily ignored them all. Instead, she searched for law firms online. She saved the number of a legal aid clinic nearby. I'll call tomorrow, she whispered to herself. At 3 p.m., Emily sent Mark a text. Mark, do you think I can get back $51,000? What? $51,000? The money I spent on his family. I have evidence for all of it. Emily took a picture of her notebook and sent it. Mark zoomed in on the photo and let out a low whistle. Wow, you are incredibly thorough. It's what I learned working in hospital administration. Without evidence, you have nothing. Yeah, this is more than enough. You should file a claim through a lawyer. Yes, I will. Emily put the notebook back in her bag. At 6 p.m., Emily stood by the hospital window, looking outside. She checked her phone. The calls and messages from her in-laws had completely stopped. Since she left the group chat, not one of them had contacted her individually. So the group chat was all it was. Emily smiled bitterly. For 23 years, she had believed they were family. But the moment she left a single group chat, they wouldn't even contact her. Emily put her phone in her pocket. It's really over now. She whispered the words and went back into her mother's room. The day after Thanksgiving, the scene at Emily's former home was nothing short of a disaster. On the living room coffee table, leftover holiday food sat hardening, a greasy film covering everything. In the kitchen sink, a mountain of dirty dishes was piled so high it emitted a sour smell that stung the nose. The mother-in-law, Carol, walked into the kitchen, wrinkled her nose at the sight, and sighed. Oh, for heaven's sake, when am I supposed to clean all this? She yelled irritably at her daughter, Jessica, who was sprawled on the living room sofa, staring at her phone. Jess, can't you at least get up and help? How am I supposed to do all this by myself? Jessica didn't even turn her head. Mom, I'm meeting my friends this afternoon. I barely have time to get ready. Then call your brother. Tell David to get his butt over here. Jessica huffed and called her brother. David, where are you? Get home, quick. Mom's about to have a meltdown over this mountain of dishes. But the voice on the other end of the line was cold. I'm driving a client out of state. Business is good today. I won't be back until late tonight. Tonight? Then who's supposed to do all this housework? I have plans too. You do it, or don't. Figure it out. I'm busy. Gotta go. When the call ended abruptly, Jessica threw her phone onto the sofa. This is so frustrating. If Emily were here, she would have taken care of all this without a word. When is she coming back, anyway? Carol opened the refrigerator and felt her blood pressure rise again. Inside, leftover ingredients from the holiday meal were jumbled together in a chaotic mess. The uncooked batter for the casseroles had already started to go bad, emitting a strange odor. And what about all this food? She left it half prepped yesterday. Then tell David to do it. He's the one who made a big scene and kicked her out, right? Your brother doesn't even know how to flip a pancake. Emily did all the prep work for this. Carol slammed the refrigerator door shut, as if to vent her frustration. At 2 p.m., as Jessica finished her makeup and prepared to leave, Carol anxiously stopped her. You're really just going to leave? Look at the state of that sink. The smell is unbearable. Mom, I told you, I'm late for my plans. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow? What excuse will you have tomorrow? You said the same thing yesterday. Jessica, acting as if she couldn't be bothered to listen, grabbed her bag and walked out the front door. Left alone in the empty, messy house, Carol stared blankly at the disaster zone of a kitchen and muttered, I knew it. I should have just held my tongue. I let my temper get the best of me and made this mess. Carol grumbled as she put on a pair of rubber gloves. But less than 10 minutes after starting the dishes, she had to stop, clutching her back as she sat down. In the past, Emily had cleaned everything up so quietly and efficiently that Carol had never dreamed that housework could be so grueling. Carol collapsed onto the sofa, took out her phone, and sent Emily a text. Emily, if you're done being mad, hurry up and come deal with this mess. If you don't sort out the food in the fridge, it's all going to rot. She sent the text and stared at the screen, waiting for a reply. But 10 minutes, then 20 minutes passed, and the message remained unread. Agitated, Carol sent another text. Are you going to be this irresponsible after spreading rumors that you left? The least you could do is finish the work you started. I'm really starting to doubt your qualifications as a daughter-in-law. Still, the phone remained silent. At 7 p.m., David returned from work, looking exhausted. Carol rushed to the front door to greet him. Son, you're home. You must be hungry. Let's eat. I'm starving. Is dinner ready? Well, you see, I wasn't feeling well today, so I couldn't make dinner. Just look at the kitchen. David looked into the kitchen and was horrified. It was just as messy as it had been the day before, and the refrigerator had been left open. Mom, what is all this? And where's Jessica? That girl went out to meet her friends this morning and hasn't shown her face since. How am I supposed to clean all this at my age? David sighed and closed the refrigerator door. The musty smell filling the house was making him irritable. Ah, let's just order takeout. I don't even have the energy to think about cooking. Takeout? What a waste of money. Why don't you call Emily? How long is she going to sulk like this? Tell her to get over here right now. Mom, Emily is really mad this time. She left the group chat and isn't answering her phone. Then, I'll have to go to the hospital myself and drag her back here. The house is a mess, and you, the man of the house, are just going to stand there and do nothing. As Carol shouted, David retreated to his room without a word and slammed the door. At 9 p.m., Jessica returned, reeking of alcohol, and saw her mother lying on the sofa. Mom, did you have dinner? Why is the house still like this? Your brother and I had instant noodles. Without Emily, no one even knows how to cook rice properly. Jessica wrinkled her nose at the pile of dishes in the sink. Mom, are we just going to leave this for Emily to do when she gets back tomorrow? The smell is spreading all the way to the living room. Then you do it. Are your hands just for decoration? Please. Why should I? That was always Emily's job. I'm tired today, I can't. Emily isn't coming back. If you don't do it, who will? When Carol's voice became firm, Jessica pouted and disappeared into her room. The next morning, as the chaos in the house reached its peak, Carol started pleading with Emily again. Emily, you've been angry for a few days. That's enough. Stop being stubborn and come home and do your work. The house is a mountain of chores. This time, the read notification appeared, but there was still no reply. Carol threw her phone onto the bed and clicked her tongue. She's really going to hold out until the very end. How dare she ignore her mother-in-law's texts? By the afternoon, fruit flies had started to buzz around the kitchen. Carol, filled with a final sense of desperation, sent another text. Is it your duty to neglect your household chores and ignore everything? Come by, even for a little while, and clean up. If you don't, you will officially be stripped of your title as this family's daughter-in-law. Still, no reply. That evening, when David came home from work, Carol poured out her grievances. Son, is Emily really not coming back? This house doesn't even feel livable anymore. I told you. She won't answer her phone. Something feels different this time. Then, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do all these dishes and cleaning by myself? Do it yourself, or make Jessica do it? I'm exhausted from working all day. Jessica is always out, and I'm supposed to do all this alone? As Carol raised her voice, David shouted back in frustration. Then hire a cleaning service. A cleaning service? Where do you think the money for that is going to come from? Emily's salary isn't being deposited into our account anymore. Then what do you want from me? Emily said she's not coming back. David went into his room and locked the door, leaving Carol alone in the living room with a deep sigh. Realizing that the absence of one daughter-in-law had caused the entire household system to collapse, Carol felt a cold dread creep up her spine for the first time. Oh my God, without a daughter-in-law, this house can't function. Surely she's not serious about not coming back, right? But Emily did not return, and the food waste in the kitchen began to rot, turning black and exposing the true face of the household. The storm of Thanksgiving passed, and a week went by. Thankfully, Emily's mother slowly began to regain her strength. Once she was off the oxygen machine and could eat porridge on her own, a small sense of relief finally settled in Emily's heart. Emily moved her belongings into a small studio apartment near the hospital that Mark had found for her and dedicated herself to her mother's care. Mark looked at her with a sympathetic expression. Emily, Mom is past the worst of it now. You should go home and get some proper sleep. I'm okay, Mark. I feel more at ease being by Mom's side. Emily smiled brightly and held her mother's hand, not having to walk on eggshells around her in-laws. But being able to spend time solely for her mother was a happiness so profound it brought tears to her eyes. Her mother, as if sensing her daughter's feelings, squeezed her hand back and smiled. Around 2 p.m., Emily sat on a bench outside the hospital room and opened the notebook she had been meticulously filling. She drafted a final ultimatum to send to her husband, David. "You told me to leave, so I left. I have no intention of ever coming back." The message was short and clear. With a trembling hand, Emily opened her banking app and, with a single tap, canceled the automatic monthly transfer for her in-laws' living expenses. That $500 monthly transfer. It's finally over. Looking at the cancellation, complete message on the screen, Emily smiled bitterly. She realized once again that the money she had been sending wasn't a token of familial affection, but merely a lifeline for her in-laws. Mark approached with coffee and sat next to her. "Emily, are your in-laws still bombarding you with calls?" "No. It's been strangely quiet since I left the group chat and cut off the money." "Really? After they were being so relentless? What changed?" "In the end, it wasn't me as a person they needed. It was the money I earned in my labor. Now that the money supply is cut off, they're panicking." Emily took a sip of the now cold coffee. Their silence, more than anything, gave her a definitive answer. But the peace did not last long. Around 7 p.m., for the first time in a week, a call came from her husband, David. Emily took a deep breath and answered. "Hey, why did you cancel the automatic payment for living expenses? The credit card bill is due, and I just got a notification that there aren't enough funds in the account." David's first words were not about her well-being, but about money. Emily replied coldly, "Because I no longer have any reason to send money to your family's house." "What do you mean? No reason? You're the daughter-in-law of this house. It's natural for a daughter-in-law to be responsible for her in-laws' living expenses." "Daughter-in-law? What kind of daughter-in-law is there in a house that threw her belongings out like trash? When you changed the password and kicked me out, our relationship was already over. That was just because Mom was so angry. She did it in the heat of the moment. You need to stop being so stubborn and come back home. The house is a complete mess." Emily was so disheartened that she couldn't even manage a hollow laugh. "You told me to leave, and I left. I have zero intention of going back. On Thanksgiving, when my mother was on the verge of death, what did you all say? That making the turkey was more important. Who was it that threw out my things and changed the password? When you kicked me out that day, you weren't just kicking out a daughter-in-law. You were erasing my entire existence from your lives." David, flustered, lowered his voice. "Emily, I'm sorry. Let's just meet and talk. You can talk to my lawyer. The divorce papers will be arriving soon." "Divorce? Are you out of your mind? You're going to throw away a 2-3-year marriage over missing one Thanksgiving? For the first time in 23 years, I am in my right mind. I'm hanging up." Emily's hand trembled as she ended the call, but her heart was filled with a sense of liberation she had never felt before. The next morning, a pathetic text message arrived from her mother-in-law. "Emily, I'm sorry. Stop this childish game and come home. Without you, nothing gets done around here, and we can't even get a proper meal. Come back quickly and sort out the refrigerator." Emily scoffed at the message. To these people, who couldn't even offer a proper apology and were only concerned about housework, she sent her final reply. "I am no longer the maid of that house. Do not contact me again." She then permanently blocked her mother-in-law's number. A subsequent threatening text from her sister-in-law, Jessica, was deleted without being read. At 3 p.m., Emily visited the law office she had scheduled an appointment with. The lawyer was amazed by the notebook and screenshot evidence Emily had brought. "Wow. You must have worked in hospital administration. This evidence is absolutely perfect. From the bank transfer records to the recorded verbal abuse and the circumstances of your eviction. With this, we can not only secure a fair division of assets, but also substantial alimony and damages. Is it possible to recover the full amount?" "Yes. We will proceed with the goal of recovering the $51,000 in living expenses and mortgage payments, plus additional compensation for emotional distress." At the lawyer's confident assertion, Emily was finally able to smile brightly. A week later, Emily left the hospital with her fully recovered mother. Thanks to Mark's kindness, they would be staying at his and her sister's house for the time being. The scenery passing by the car window seemed somehow new. Her mother gently took Emily's hand. "Daughter, do you really have no regrets? Don't you feel it's a waste of all those years?" "Mom, my only regret is that I endured it for 23 years. I don't feel any regret about leaving now. I'm finally going to live happily with you, without having to worry about what anyone else thinks. A month later, they arrived at the courthouse for the divorce mediation. Her husband, David, appeared with a haggard face and clung to Emily, begging. Her mother-in-law stood beside them, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, putting on a performance of a pitiful old woman. Emily, I was truly wrong. Without you, the house isn't a home. Please, just give us one more chance. Please. But Emily walked past them with a cold gaze and entered the mediation room. The mediator read from the documents. It was a claim for a total of Bashayi, Ling Ling Ling, Bawanyi 51,000 inches asset division and $30,000 in damages for emotional distress. Upon hearing the amount, David screamed in protest. $81,000? Emily, you're ruthless. Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? At that, Emily's lawyer spread out the prepared bank statements and audio recordings on the table. The evidence is all here. The defendant's gambling and entertainment debts that the plaintiff quietly paid off. The money spent on the luxuries of the in-laws. All of it came from the plaintiff's hard-earned salary. Furthermore, considering the circumstances of abandoning a critically ill mother-in-law on a holiday and evicting his wife, the damages are more than justified. After 3 hours of intense debate, a settlement was reached. The full amount of the asset division was approved, and they agreed on $20,000 in damages. As Emily left the courthouse, the warm spring sun shone down on her. It's over. My real life is just beginning. Emily descended the courthouse steps with a light heart. What had been shattered was not just a family, but the arrogant assumption of her in-laws that a daughter-in-law, no matter how mistreated, would always come back. Emily smiled brightly at her mother and Mark, who were waiting for her. In her future, there was no longer the suffocating smell of holiday cooking, but only the fragrant and free path of flowers.